The concept of quarantine. What is home quarantine? What is the difference between isolation and home quarantine? Quarantine actually begins from a Latin word called quarantina, which was started in Venice for a period of 40 days of isolation for travelers who came in during the period of the plague. It was felt that these travelers were carrying infection and they should be kept in the port. They should not be allowed entry into the town, and those ships were given a yellow flag, which was the color of the quarantine flag. It had been realized at that time that infections were being carried by commercial travelers into the town and that the disease was spreading. Since then, we have been using quarantine in various ways in various countries for various diseases including smallpox, measles, cholera, plague, and many other infectious diseases to prevent the spread of the disease. So the basic purpose of quarantine is to prevent the spread of disease in the population. Isolation is for a patient who suffers from the disease or who has been diagnosed with the disease so that the patient does not transfer and transmit the disease to others. Quarantine, on the other hand, is for those who have been exposed to a person who had the disease but do not as yet have a disease that is diagnosed or have any symptom of the disease, and they are put into home quarantine. There are certain rules of home quarantine. So when you are advised home quarantine because you have been exposed either in air travel or because of a family member or because you are a healthcare worker, you have been exposed to a patient who was COVID-19 positive, you are expected to stay at home. There are certain rules you must follow when you stay at home. Number one, there should be a separate room that is allotted to you where you can stay, and hopefully, if you have and if it's possible, a dedicated bathroom for yourself so that you don't have to share bathroom space with others. If the bathroom remains the same, then you must make sure that you wash all the knobs, faucets, and handles thoroughly with soap and water after use so that there is no contamination. Family members must maintain at least 1 meter distance so that infection by droplet cannot be transmitted. Other household members should use a separate bathroom and should not share the same bathroom. You must reduce, or if it is possible, you must stop visitors coming into your home. Whoever is there, you must do frequent hand washing with soap and water, or else disinfecting your hands with alcohol rubs. Avoid touching your eyes, nose and mouth with unwashed hands. This increases the chance of spreading an infection from your hand into your nose and mouth and subsequently into your lungs. The home quarantine person is supposed to use a thermometer twice a day to measure temperature. If symptoms develop during the period of home quarantine, like fever, cough, fatigue and breathlessness, then the person must be tested for the virus to see whether the person has now become infected. What is very important is the home quarantine person's utensils, clothes must be disposed of separately. So it is preferable that this person is given food in disposable trays. Those trays are then put into a plastic bag and disposed of separately. Clothes are washed thoroughly in soap and water and put out to dry in the hot sun. Drinking glasses, cups, eating utensils, towels, bedding, all should be separate for the quarantine person and should not be shared by anybody else. A quarantine person sometimes breaks a quarantine. Well, at the end of the day, we are all human, and the reason for breaking the quarantine is usually just a frustration of being confined to one room, and a person may feel this is no fault of mine. What am I doing being quarantined in one particular place? Well, you have to exercise restraint. You have to believe that this is not just for you, but for your family members as well as for the community at large, and you must behave responsibly. Keep the room packed with books and with other material or a TV screen or whatever it is that distracts you and keeps you occupied, so that your reason to break the quarantine go down and you behave more responsibly. Do not break your quarantine. It is not good for you, it is not good for your family members, and it is not good for society.